Hi there, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Salt Lake City Police Department's first Ask Me Anything. Please, if you have any questions for our panel members today, leave us a comment on our Facebook page and we will have them answered here for you. I'm Christina Judd. I am the Communications Director for Salt Lake City Police Department, and I will be moderating this live event. We chose to host this event this week because it's National Police Week. And we normally have a lot of events this week, but because we are honoring social distancing, we chose to have this live event for our community instead. I want to thank all of the law enforcement who serve across the nation for their dedication to the community. You're on the front lines answering calls for service through this pandemic, even putting your health at risk. So we want to thank you. And I also want to thank everyone who's joined us from Salt Lake City Police Department to be part of this panel. I'm going to let them introduce themselves really quick before we start answering questions. Chief Mike Brown. Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
Oh, can't read my lips?
Yeah, go ahead, Chief.
I've done that a few times. My name is Mike Brown. I'm the Chief of Police here in Salt Lake City. I've been doing this job since May 31st of 1991. So almost 30 years. In 19 days, I'll embark on my 30th year as a police officer. And I want to say this job and this department is the best job and the best department I've ever had the chance to work with and to visit with and to be a part of. I have the opportunity to go all over the country and to see other agencies, and I want the communities of Salt Lake City, and more importantly, the women and men of the Salt Lake City Police Department to know I truly respect, and I want them to know they are the finest and the bravest in the country. That being said, this is National Police Week, and there's two things we normally do. We recognize the great and noble work of our law enforcement officers and civilians. We can't do that this week, so we'll find another time to do that. And we also have our Fallen Officer Memorial. From our humble beginnings in March 10th of 1851, this police department has served this community. And in that 169 years, unfortunately, we have lost 26 officers. We typically have a Fallen Officer Memorial where we honor them. Today, I want to honor them and tell all of us and their families that they served with great integrity and character. Their lives are woven into the fabric of our department through blood, sweat, and tears. And although we can't honor them with a vigil this year, maybe later when the pandemic thing lifts, we will do that. But today I want to take a moment of silence and do two things. And we always promise that we will commit to remember them and we will never forget them. So with that being said, can we just take a moment of silence for the officers that have fallen in the service of this community? Thank you. If you'd like to know more about our fallen, you can go to slcpd.com/fallen and read more about these officers and their lives. With that being said, I'd like to turn the time now over to Wendy Isom.
Hi, my name's Wendy Isom. I have the best job at the Salt Lake City Police Department. I'm the supervisor of the Victim Advocate Program. We have 10 employees and myself that get to respond to help people on sometimes what is their darkest day. And it's truly a privilege that we get to help individuals who have been affected by traumatic crime. I've been here almost 20 years. And prior to that, I did work in the community. I'm not sure I expected to be here as long as I have, but I have fallen in love with the people of Salt Lake. That's my old community. My parents grew up in that city, and I love my brothers and sisters who serve with the Salt Lake City Department. I do want to shout out the easiest way to get a hold of us right from the beginning of this presentation, and that phone number is our 24-hour hotline. It's 801-580-7969, and I promise you we have some of the best advocates in the whole state, if not the nation, standing by 24 hours a day to be able to help people on that hotline. I'm now going to pass it on to Yvette.
Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Yvette Zayas with the Salt Lake City Police Department. I've been in law enforcement for about 22 years now. During my career here at Salt Lake City Police Department, I've had numerous opportunities, fun stuff to kind of suck you in to come and do it, let you know what we have. Started on patrol. I was on downtown bikes. I got to have fun on SWAT as a collateral and as a full-time operator. I did the city gang unit, the training unit. I was a school resource officer at West High. Once a Panther, always a Panther. I was on the community intelligence unit as a detective for districts 5 and 7. Then I was promoted after that to sergeant, where I supervised our bike units. And then I was in internal affairs for a while. Then I was fortunate enough to be promoted by Chief Brown to lieutenant. And I was a watch commander in patrol, which was awesome and fun. And now I'm currently over the training unit. And what we do in the training unit is very intense. We make sure that all the officers receive their 40 hours of training to maintain their certification annually. Shooting, policy stuff, we make it fun for them. I also help run the Basic Academy, which is for anybody that wants to be a police officer. And we are a satellite of the Utah Post Academy. And that typically runs for 5 to 6 months. We also have an academy for those officers who want to join our agency coming from other agencies or outside of the state. And that's a lateral academy, and that runs for about 3 weeks, and then they go into the field training program. Thank you for watching us, and I love this city. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica now.
Thank you, Yvette. Like she said, my name is Jessica Waters. I'm the social work director here at the police department. And also, like Wendy said, this is such a fun and unique job. I'm glad I had the opportunity and privilege to work here for the police department. So I am the social work director for our Community Connection Center. And I've worked for the police department for 4 years now when we first hired on social workers, which was a new program. And it's been fun to see it change over the years. I originally got my master's of social work with a concentration in forensics from the U, and that's how I got introduced to Salt Lake City Police Department. We have a team of 7 social workers, and we go out and we do a co-responder model with our CIT, our crisis intervention team officers. And we do outreach to homeless camps, and we respond to 911 calls that are social issues, whether that is mental health, substance use, homelessness. And we go out and respond to all those calls and try and help get people connected to services. That's all for me. I'm going to hand it over to Detective Mike Datola.
Hey, I'm Mike Datola. I am, my primary assignment is as a detective on the full-time SWAT unit here at the SLCPD. Love my job always. For the past several weeks, I've been reassigned to the Office of the Chief as a safety officer for the department. My background in public safety, I was in EMS on that side of things as a paramedic for about 10 years. I've been a police officer for about 10 years past that. And I also have a PhD that became relevant very quickly in health promotion and education. So some coursework in epidemiology and public health, emergency management, that sort of thing. So I've been happy to step up and serve the department and the community in that capacity now as well. And I will throw it over to Christy.
Okay, thanks everyone. I'm really glad that you could be here. For anyone who's tuning in, we would ask that you send us questions on our Facebook page and we will throw them to some of our panel members to answer. It looks like we're going to have a wide-ranging ability to answer questions from the department, everything from how our operations are going during the COVID-19 pandemic and our training and recruiting to how we're doing domestic violence and homeless outreach. As it was, we have our first question from Tiffany on Facebook. She would really like to know how much of the police department is currently being affected by the pandemic. Detective Datola, could you maybe take that one?
Sure. As far as the percentage of the police department that's been affected by the pandemic, 100%. Right? We're all heavily affected, just like everyone else in the community. It's changing our lives, changing the world for the time being. As far as specifically quarantine, the SLCPD has one of the most cautious quarantine practices of any public safety agency, maybe the most cautious. And our goal there is to not only protect our department here, but also to protect the community as a whole. As far as quarantine, at a high point, we've had a little bit over 40 officers on quarantine, isolated, not interacting with the public or other folks from the department. Today, we're sitting about 10, and hopefully by tonight, based on testing and whatnot, we should be down to half of that. We're doing our best as the safety team to stay on the cutting edge of practices, including mitigation, strategies, PPE, decon, and testing.
Hey, Christy, can I follow up just a little bit to Tiff's question?
Absolutely, Chief.
All right. Hey, Mike spoke about the officers that have been actually infected with the COVID-19 virus and the precautions we take and the quarantines we take. But when you say how many of the officers and how has this affected your department, it has affected everybody, every officer and every civilian. I mean, when we go out and take calls, we've tried to do things differently. We've tried to have our dispatch triage those calls and ask the questions if anybody's sick or if they're symptomatic, could they step out and talk to us? So it's affected dispatch, it's affected the way we responded. But you know, policing in this day and age is difficult. When you add nitro gloves and you add goggles and then you throw on an N95 mask and try to police, it's very, very difficult. It makes a difficult job even harder. And I've been out with the officers and I've had the opportunity to stand side by side and go on calls with them. I watched them take a call last week where there was an individual that was wielding a samurai sword. To watch them engage with him at the proper distances and to use de-escalation and ultimately take that sword away without anybody getting hurt was just amazing. But to do all of that with this equipment on, trying to keep themselves safe and the communities we serve. So Tiff, your question, how many officers that it affected? It's affected all of us. So good question, though. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. We have another question from Facebook, and I think Yvette, Lieutenant Zayas is going to be the best one to answer this. It's, are you doing away with N-Post as a hiring requirement?
Yes, actually we are. Post decided in March that it was no longer going to be a requirement, so it's going to be up to the agency. And we as an agency decided that we're not. I believe we are going to implement a report writing test instead to take place of the N-Post. So make sure you're brushing up on your report writing skills.
Great, thanks, Yvette. I do know that we were hiring a lot recently, and it looks like we are pushing that back now. The next hiring will likely be next year in the springtime, correct?
Yeah. And then Christy, just real quick, and you remember in high school when you didn't think you were ever going to use English again in the career you might have? Report writing is a big part of what we do. So yeah, that we'll institute some sort of competency testing, but English and report writing is a big part of what we do.
To answer your question, Christy, we are on a hiring freeze right now. We're looking March to start a new academy or lateral academy. We'll start the process sooner, obviously, because we have to do the physical fitness test to make sure that everybody can qualify to be an applicant. But yeah, March is what we're looking at right now. If we can get it sooner, we will. We will need a lot of police officers out there.
Yeah, we will. And for anyone who's interested, we will be putting that information out on all of our social media platforms. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even YouTube, at SLCPD, or on our website, slcpd.com. We'll go to our third question from Alicia. Thanks for writing in. What are the qualifications you need to be a victim advocate? Wendy?
That's a great question. And it really varies on where you want to be a victim advocate and what you want to do. So for my program here at the Salt Lake City Police Department, we ask people to have a 4-year college degree in a field related to criminal justice or psychology, sociology, one of the human studies, or, and 1 year experience, or you can substitute those year for year. So someone with an associate's degree and 3 years experience would also work. However, we take student interns. So sometimes someone in my program has, I don't know, 2 years of college at best and no experience, and comes in and does an internship to learn a little bit on the job. If you want to be a victim advocate for rape recovery's hotline, it may be a 40-hour training course, and then you're ready to start helping individuals at the end of 40 hours. So every program is a little bit different. There are systems-based victim advocates, like I am at the police department, but there's community-based advocates that are at nonprofits, grassroots movements, other agencies. So it really just depends on kind of what you want to do. My suggestion would be, if you're at all interested, give me a holler after this is over, and we could chart out a plan to at least get your toes wet and see what you're interested in.
And Wendy, how would she get a hold of you?
So the best way to get a hold of me is my email, which is Wendy, WENDY, .isom, which is ISOM, at slcgov.com. But if you want to try our 24-hour hotline, they will always hunt me down whenever needed, and that phone number is 801-580-7969.
Okay, great. Thank you. Our next question from Facebook from Heidi is, how are you doing homeless outreach? And I know that this has taken on a little bit of a different look and feel, but really, I think Jessica can bring us up to speed. I think it's been going very well.
Yes, thank you, Christy. It is definitely different right now, but we are still doing homeless outreach. And what that entails is we're partnering with Volunteers of America Outreach, VOA, and then we also are partnering with the county health department, and we are taking nurses out with us as we go out to homeless camps, and we're checking people for any symptoms and encouraging them to get tested if they are symptomatic, and educating about the COVID. But also still trying to connect people to resources, whether that's housing, mental health, case management, anything that they need, we're still there to help get them to services. And just like every other officer, our social workers and our officers are going out with their protective gear as well. We're also trying to hand out any face masks that we have available to individuals who are experiencing homelessness too.
Great. The next question comes from Heidi as well. Why are you not wearing masks in the office? And I was wearing a mask earlier. We are all in different places, but I think maybe Chief and Detective Detola, do you guys want to chime in here about what our next steps are for our protocol with the pandemic?
Yeah, thanks, Christy. I'm in my office, and Christy is 100 feet away from me. So right now I don't need to wear my mask, but this is my mask, and I've been wearing it in here when we have conversations at any distance. We wear our masks. But Mike, we've talked about that, and we're probably going to implement a new strategy with our masks. You want to talk a little bit about that and how our efforts really are just to protect our workforce and so that we can continue to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as specific mask use, I'm also in my own room right now. There's nobody else in here. I found a locker room that's unoccupied, and my mask is right behind the computer. We do have it as a policy that on all public contacts, our first line officers are wearing full PPE, which includes the nitrile gloves, the mask, and the glasses that the chief was showing off earlier. So that absolutely is in play. And right now, in our secure buildings that are closed to the public, it's an individual's choice as to whether or not they can mitigate the circumstances with or without a mask while sitting at their workstation. As we repopulate the workspace here and change our staffing strategy, we'll obviously be upping our game as far as PPE sitting in these rooms, because we won't have our own individual rooms to be sitting in.
Yeah, and we've also gone to a lot of telecommuting options for anyone who can do that. I telecommute a lot, and we come into the office as needed. We've also split into different teams, so there's not cross-contamination and everything. So I think that SLCPD has taken this very seriously and worked really hard to minimize exposure and minimize the risk for everyone involved. Thanks for the answer, guys. We're gonna ask a question about bike registration, and although maybe it's not at the top of everybody's minds, May is National Bike Month, and the last few years we've been promoting our free bike registration, which is on slcpd.com. There's a little banner there, and you can go on and register your bike. But Anne asks, I have seen a lot of posts in the past couple of weeks about bikes getting stolen from people's garages in the Salt Lake area. Has there been an increase in bike theft during the pandemic? Is this more than just random theft? People become very attached to their bikes, so it's not only a financial loss, but feels very personal too. Chief, do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. Ann, that's a great question, and I'll second your statement. People in Salt Lake City love their bikes. This is a biking community, and we understand that. I'm holding a CompStat report. We do CompStat here in Salt Lake City, where we look at crime trends and hotspots, and then through this intelligence, we deploy our officers. And you're absolutely right. There has been a spike of residential burglaries that could include bicycles. And we're up 6.3% this year, which is concerning. I mean, it's not huge, but if it's your bike that's stolen, it's absolutely, I mean, it's up 100% for you. So through this, we meet and talk as captains in an organization, and we look at where these are happening, because a lot of times they're within a certain geographical area or different times, and we try to saturate those areas with some of our uncommitted resources, with our bike squads, our detectives, our beat officers, to hopefully catch the individuals that are doing that. And we've had great success over the last 4 or 5 years using this CompStat model. Our total violent crimes over the last year are down 9.1%. Our property crimes are down 21%. So we've had a lot of success. But what I want people to do, and the takeaway here is, please, if your bike is stolen and you have no idea who did it, please call, report that bike stolen. What it does, it puts a pin in the map, and it's something that we track and we count. And that way we can look for these trends and patterns, because if you don't report it, we don't know about it. If we don't know about it, we can't deploy our resources to help stop those nefarious activities, those that would steal a bike, and hopefully maybe get your bike back.
Great, thanks, Chief. And just a reminder, you can register your bike for free. Even if you don't live in Salt Lake City, it's a really good idea to register your bike with us, because a lot of the bikes that get stolen can be pawned, and a lot of the pawn shops are down here in Salt Lake. So it helps us get those back to the owner that we need to. So for the next question, we have William, who's asking, what civilian jobs are available at the police department? I am a civilian. We have 2 other civilians on the chat here, Wendy Isom, also Jessica Waters, but there's a lot of other positions that are open. Chief, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we have, I think it's just shy of 200 civilian jobs with the Salt Lake City Police Department, and that includes here and out at the airport. But there's crime lab technicians, there's evidence technicians, there's the people that take our records, and records clerks, and there's a records unit. There's our professional staff that helps each of us here. And so there are a lot of civilian jobs, and they are just as important as the officers that do the work out there. I mean, there are analysts that do these crime stat reports, and they do a fantastic job. And so we couldn't do the job that we do on the street to serve the community without this army of civilians, and they are great. They're a professional staff that help us become and help us be a better police department. But if you go online, I think there might be a list of the jobs we have, or at least ones that would be open. Unfortunately, right now we're in a hiring freeze, but take a look at those and maybe start planning down the road.
Yes, we also have opportunities for interns, and you can check our website for that information, or job postings with SLC Gov. And that's a unique way to participate in the police department and try some jobs on for size. And we additionally have the Explorer programs for the youth 14 to 20. And we have a civilian post and a law enforcement post. And you can check our website for that information as well.
Maybe just real
yeah.
quick, maybe Jessica can talk about her staff, because there's several different jobs within the CCC, the Community Connection Center, and what those civilian positions look like. Jessica.
Yes. Like Chief said, yeah, we're always hiring as well. Unfortunately, there's the freeze going right now. But we have their positions, so that's master's level licensed clinicians that we hire. And then we also have case manager positions, which are bachelor's level or 5+ years experience. And those are individuals who do any case management needs, getting people connected to services. And then we will also be hiring for a social work manager in the future after the freeze. So yeah, they're fun jobs. It's a lot of fun working as a civilian for the police department. It's very different compared to maybe working for a nonprofit or another agency.
We're not that scary, are we, Jessica?
No.
Great. So we have another question from Brooke. She says, recently, a friend of mine was complaining about finding needles near the track station she was walking to. She called the health department and wasn't offered a solution, but they told her she could pick them up herself. But we do this too. I know that we have officers who go out and I think you just call 799-3000. Is that correct?
Mike, you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, we certainly have additional resources with the PPE that we have at our disposal and the ability to dispose of things properly in sharps containers and whatnot. Certainly if a citizen feels comfortable and has the appropriate training, knowledge, understanding, and resources to dispose of those materials, certainly if there's meaningful evidentiary value to those items, we want to know about that. But if there's a discarded needle and you have those skills, absolutely feel free to handle that yourself. But you can also, just like Christy was saying, 799-3000 is a non-emergency, and get someone out there to take care of it.
And Jessica also, I think, can speak to this.
Yeah, there are also needle drop box areas too. If, say, for some reason you're an individual who needs to get rid of a needle or a syringe, there are drop boxes throughout the city. They're the big red boxes. There's one in Pioneer Park. There used to be one in Sugar House over by Fairmont Park. I don't believe that one's there right now. But we do have those. And then there are some needle exchange programs they go out and they clean up needles. So if you see an area that's very populated, I know the Utah Syringe Exchange Network, which is through the Utah State Health Department, they can help arrange cleanups for any spaces that have a lot of needles that are laying around.
Great, thanks, Jessica.
Just real quick, Christy, I think the important thing is if you call 799-3000, again, we don't know about it unless you call. We have a unit within the police department made up of 7 detectives, the community intelligence unit. If there's a community problem or a situation like this, that they can garner those resources, the health department, needle exchange, and we can come out and help you. But you've got to let us know. So please call that 799-3000 and report those problems so we can help you out.
We had another question about the current situation of arresting and jailing people. I know that the jail has let out some people and they're trying to keep space available. Chief, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I absolutely will. Yeah, I mean, this COVID-19 pandemic crisis has really affected all aspects of law enforcement. The Sheriff Rivera, she runs and operates the jail. They have downsized a lot of the people within the jail to prevent the spread of COVID-19. I think they had a few positive cases, but with a little more space and distance, they were able to control that. But they have downsized it, and they've asked us as law enforcement if there's a way that we could cite somebody with a paper citation. To do that in lieu of taking somebody to jail. In fact, right now, unless somebody's committed a felony, or some sort of misdemeanor like a domestic violence, it's very hard to get people in jail. So our proactive efforts, we've asked our officers to do less proactive work, not to be less visible and out there in the community, because there's a misconception that because there are fewer calls for service or they're not doing more proactive work, that they have more time on their hand. They do have more time on their hand, but that's the misnomer, is that our calls for service have gone up. You'd think they've gone down, but we're going on a lot of suspicious persons, a lot of check the welfare, agency assists. I mean, the suspicious persons calls there for a little while, we were going to parking lots where there might be somebody in a car, and we'd stop and talk to them because we had been dispatched on that call. And we found out it was just somebody that was trying to honor the stay-at-home order, and they just needed a break from their house. And so they were just taking a break in their car in a parking lot. Our calls for service have actually gone up. Our enforcement activities, our proactive work has actually gone down. As far as, let me just tell you, as far as traffic citations, they're down. Over the last 4 weeks, they're down 91%. Our misdemeanor citations, they're down 13%. Our jail bookings are down 35%. Our total arrests are down 29%. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying we're doing great work. We're doing great work and we're responding to the calls. A lot of our proactive work, though, we've tried to step that down a little bit to keep our officers safe, making those contacts that don't need to be occur.
Yeah. Thanks, Chief. The next question is for Lieutenant Zayas. What are you doing to keep the officers trained, and what's going on with the academy class that was happening currently?
So obviously the COVID pandemic hit us mid of our in-service training, which is part of our ongoing training for the officers. So we had to adapt and overcome, and we were able to get help from other officers in the department, and we are putting everything online using virtual training. We were doing live classes, and then we were able to record it so that officers could watch it at their own convenience to get their credit hours for training. As far as the recruits, we have 27 recruits in the academy right now that started earlier this year, and this pandemic hit us right at the start of their LEO block, which is the law enforcement portion of the academy, which is predominantly training. So we've been able to do the virtual web training to facilitate a lot of their training. And through contact with Detective Daitola, we are now bringing them in slowly in smaller groups with our training staff of 10 to facilitate this training, firearms, scenario-based training. We are going to do EVO next week. Post has been working hand in hand with us to make sure that we provide them the best training that we can with what they help with. Just before the pandemic hit us, we had 12 recruits graduate, and they are currently in the field training program right now. Throughout the year, with the funding that we've had 35 officers complete the police academy and the field training program. And then we had 3 officers that were Salt Lake City officers that decided they missed home, and they're back with us. And then we've had 2 recruits who are currently weren't able to finish the academy because they were injured during the academy, but one has recuperated and she's ready to go. So once we start in March, she'll be back with us in the academy. So we're making sure we take care of our people, making sure we provide what we can. You know, we're trying to be as creative as we can to make sure that the officers have pertinent training so that they can do their job successfully and, you know, serve you as a community. Did I get all the?
That's great, Yvette. I know that you have worked really, really hard with your team to make sure that you've moved as much of the training into online platforms, and then you do some in-person stuff like shooting and things like that. So I know that was a Herculean task to make sure that all of our police officers maintain that 40 hours per year, and that our academy gets through the class that they're in. So that was
to know that the recruits and our staff are wearing PPE. They're wearing the masks, the gloves, or the
glasses.
can't speak, the glasses and the gloves during all the training. Nobody is wearing we're following all the PPE set forth by Detective Detola.
Great. Actually, the next question is for Detective Detola. Is there any evidence that the virus spreads through in interior ventilation systems?
Not that I'm aware of specifically. I'm doing my best right now. My team and I are trying to serve as a clearinghouse for actual evidence-based best practices. And absolutely, if there's someone out there that has specific information as far as the virus spreading through ventilation, we're going off the information that the primary driver for the spread of this disease is respiratory droplets, person-to-person transmission. We are concerned about fomite-based transmission. Certainly, we're doing our best to up our game with respect to hygiene, decontamination around the office, and everything we can. We're doing the best we can. That reminds me of a question in another similar forum that I was asked about whether or not all of our police vehicles have bulletproof glass in the windows. The practicality of some of the measures that we'd love to take, it doesn't work out for us, and we do the best we can with the resources we've got. So yeah, we're trying to keep up to date on all that information as possible. I don't have specific information that that's a problem right now.
Great, thanks. Wendy, someone's asking, if we believe someone is in an abusive relationship, what can we do right now? I know a lot of people are at home, there's a lot of stress. This is a very big concern for the chief, for the department, and I think some of the things that you've been doing are really unique and a best practice nationally now.
Well, thanks. I would just start with, there's a lot we can do. Whether you're a friend, a neighbor, a stranger, a bystander, a coworker, if you think someone is in a violent relationship, the easiest thing you can do is just start by telling them you're there for them. Part of the problem with domestic violence, offenders are really good at trying to isolate someone. And we have added COVID isolation to that as well. So right now is a really tough time where people's support system seems to be locked in their own homes. People may not be going to work or school where they could ask for help. So if you think any of that's going on, see if you can find a way to send them a subtle message. Recognize it might be monitored. Someone might be reading that. So you might not want to say, I think you're a victim of domestic violence and I'm here for you. You might just want to start out with, this is a tough time, and I want you to count me in your circle of people who can help you with anything right now. So messaging like that to let someone know they're not alone is huge. Try not to judge them or the person that's abusing them. We often try to tell someone who's being victimized, you should leave them, they're a bad person, and it's not that simple. So we don't want to judge what's going on in someone's home because we don't know. But after that, after you've done kind of what you can also reach out to other agencies like Salt Lake City Police Department. So you can request a welfare check through our non-emergency number, which is 801-799-3000, and ask officers to go out and see if someone's okay. If you believe they've been abused, if you think they're being hurt right now, you can have someone go check on them. You can also call our 24-hour hotline. We can sit down with you as a friend and come up with some ideas. You can give the person who might be being abused our hotline and they can call 24/7. You can call together. You can ask us to call them. You could set up a safe time or place when they are free to speak and we can facilitate a discussion at that point. And then in light of social distancing, we have adapted and stepped up our game. So my shout out to the Utah Office for Victims of Crime and my VOCA grant. They have helped us free up some emergency funds where we can help get someone a cell phone during this time. So if they need to get a protective order, but they don't have a cell phone to be able to do that, or if their abuser has taken that phone or broke that phone, we can help get a replacement. Our advocates can still respond out to scene in PPE. We've adapted a little. We might not come into their house. We might ask them to step out to the front yard. We might call them from our car while they're inside their home. We will look a little different because we will also have all that PPE on. We're getting great at dropping groceries or emergency needs on someone's doorstep instead of handing them off person to person. But we will help find a solution. All of the services that we're available for are still available. We're just delivering it a slightly different way.
That's great.
Can I jump in there, Christy? Hey, I was on a national call with commissioners and chiefs from all over the country, and they wanted us to report on domestic violence. I mean, sadly, our domestic violence rates are up. They're up about 13%. And so in the light of this pandemic and stay at home, I explained what Wendy and her team are doing with the phones. And that was, I think, a light went on nationally. Wendy, you're rather humble about this, but I think your efforts to provide somebody a lifeline really can make a difference and can save lives. And so giving people a phone that they can call you or whoever they need to get that help is life-changing and prevents, abuse down the road. Another thing that we're dealing with is nobody knew when during this pandemic, custody disputes would rise. I mean, people are supposed to stay home, but the other partner sometimes would say, well, it's my week or my weekend for the kids. And so those have risen. And so we've tried to educate people about that. But Christy, I'm going to throw a question back to you. During this whole thing, we have tried very hard to put out social media about domestic violence and where people can turn. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, Chief. As I said, I'm the communications director. So we handle, me and my team handle all the external and internal communications for the department, and have been pushing out a lot of information on our social media platforms. That's been picked up by some of the local TV stations. It has information about where you can go, what's open, numbers to call. We just wanted to remind everybody that even if you're feeling alone, if you're home, you're not alone. We're here. We answer the phone. We'll come to you. We'll help get you out of a situation if you need it. And our victim advocates are so amazing. They really do what is in your best interest and what you want. We're not here to force you into doing anything that you don't want to. If you just need groceries, if you need somebody to talk to, or if you need a ride to a shelter, we're providing all of that. Thanks,
And
Chief.
if I can just add one more, sometimes people don't want to access those services through a police department, and that's okay. Our hotline, they can call anonymously so that we can't track back who we're talking to. And we will gladly help people find a partner that is not part of the criminal justice system. So for those who might be like, I don't want the police in my business, I still would love to help you get help through another partner in any way that someone would like.
And Wendy, they don't need to file a police report to access your services either, correct?
Correct, they do not. There's one service out there that requires a police report, and that is to apply for the Utah Office for Victims of Crime. And so we will walk people through the pros and cons about trying to access emergency funds, which may require a police report. Other than that, every single service I offer does not require a police report.
Great, yeah, and she has a lot. So even if you just want to ask the questions, she's available. Our next question we touched on a little bit in the beginning. When are we hiring again? And I know that Yvette can answer this, but also talk about some of the tips and tricks you could use to prepare for when we are hiring again.
Yes, as I touched earlier, we are on a hiring freeze until March. And the end post is no longer going to be used as one of the testings. So we expect that the process is going to be highly competitive. Obviously, in our job, people are seeing that we're still working, and so people are going to be applying. We're still taking applications. You will have one of the recruiters that will stay in contact with you as the process goes along. I know there were some people that were already on the list and going through backgrounds and whatnot. Our department hasn't forgotten about you. We're still continuing it. So make sure that you're brushing up on your physical fitness. You see a lot of people out there being active. Make sure that you can jump. You know, box jumps are great. Using your stairs if you don't have a box. You can also make sure you're doing push-ups and sit-ups in between your TV shows that you're watching as you're quarantining at home on those commercial breaks. Also running. Running is really important. Make sure you're keeping up your cardio. Going out with your kids or running with your dog to help build that up, because when March comes, it's going to be before March when you have to test. And you'll get an email from somebody in our department advising you when those PT tests will be. There will be a various amount of dates, so you pick one and show up for the date that you sign up on, because we do have officers that take time out of their day to facilitate those trainings for you guys. And then Christy's staff and our background guys who facilitate the written tests that are part of the program. If you get on slcpd.com, there is actually a list of the process so that you can prepare yourself mentally for what the process is and what to expect and whatnot. Just so you know, for the vertical jump, you have to jump 15 inches. For the push-ups, you have to be able to do 16 push-ups. For the sit-up, it's 25 sit-ups. And then for the run, it's 15 minutes and 37 seconds that you have to pass. Now, it is a pass-fail when you do apply for our department. So you don't have to do more than that. You just need to do what's required. And then you go on. But in the academy, it's different. Just to prepare you, you have to do your best. And all those scores are used to help you with your seniority in the academy. If you want to contact our recruiters, it's recruitment@slcgov.com. They would be more than willing to answer any questions that you have about the process and how to get yourself better prepared. Just check out slcpd.com and they can give you more information. There's tips on how to do the exercises properly as well. Chief, I think you're waving your hand, or you?
No, my lights went off. I wasn't moving enough. They automatically went off.
The chief, he wants in on
To get the light to come back on.
So,
Great.
end post. It's a, how do I describe this in simple terms? It's kind of like a high school test. It tests your grammar, your spelling, your math, just the basic stuff to make sure that you can comprehend what we do. I mean, a lot of people think that all police do is chase people, fight with people, and enforce the law, but we do more than that. It's about being able to communicate with people, solve people's problems in their time of crisis, and keep our demeanor while these people are yelling at us because they're in a time of crisis. These tests, post decided, are not as necessary. I mean, it makes it easier now for people who are coming from Florida or California who want to test for our agency to be able to test now, because the process to take that test was a little bit difficult. So now we're making it easier to have applicants from out of state join our amazing department. So.
Thanks, Yvette. And just to reiterate, if anybody has any questions, they can go to recruitment. They can email at recruitment@slcgov.com or go to our website. Our YouTube channel also has those videos on how to do the PT test correctly. As she said, you don't have to, you only have to hit a certain mark before they let you into the academy, and then they bring you up to the level that is required for your graduation. So don't be scared.
Just real quick,
and work on it.
Do those push-ups and sit-ups have to be within a time frame? Is that within a minute, or is that just in a row?
Within a minute with no rest. And we make sure that when you're in the academy, you're getting paid to work out and to learn. So
we have the in-house academy, and you're on our payroll during that. So that's a good thing.
That's a question I get a lot is, well, do we get paid while they're in the academy? Yes, you're getting paid. You're one of us learning how to do our job and to switch from being a civilian to a sworn officer.
Great, thanks, Yvette. Chief, we have two questions that are kind of similar, asking about enforcement of crosswalks and crosswalk use. We've had a couple of incidents over the past few weeks of people getting hit, fatally injured with a auto pedestrian accident, and also people driving over tracks when they're not supposed to. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, tragic events. Someone lost their lives in a traffic accident like that. But look, I said a lot of our proactive work has been, we've asked our officers to step down, but we're not saying that all of it is. And so I think the question talked about crosswalk stings. Well, now if we told you when and where they'd be, it really wouldn't be a sting. But we still have our motor officers out there, and they're still patrolling. All the officers are ready and willing to respond on reckless drivers, DUIs, anything that jeopardizes the public safety, anything to protect communities and those that want to ride and transit on their bikes. We're ready and able and willing to enforce those type of laws. And so, not all proactive work has stopped. We're still doing everything to keep our public safe.
Thanks. We also had a question about impound fees. So if a car is stolen and found, Deb says she understands the tow charge, but why would the owner have to pay the impound fee if the car was stolen? Do you know that, Chief?
Yeah, I mean, every time we find a car, and this is something we probably need to educate the public more on, but provide a good contact number so that we can get a hold of you, and provide a secondary and a cell phone number. I would, if I was doing this, I would provide 3 or 4 numbers so that we could get a hold of you, because our officers, when we do find a car, we try to make those calls and contact somebody, because we don't want anybody to be victimized twice by an impound fee and then a tow fee. So but unfortunately, there's a lot of times we can't get a hold of anybody, and so we have to follow the state regulations for an impound fee and a tow fee. But we'll do our best to contact an owner or a friend or somebody that can show that they have proof of ownership or acting for the owner to get that car. We don't want to charge any more fees than we have to.
Right. Jessica, we had oh, sorry.
As victim advocates, we can sometimes help, depending on what fees have been charged. There is sometimes a appeals process. So we do successfully help victims ask for waivers of those fees, and we don't always get them, because I can't promise what each agency or which impound lot will do, but we definitely help ask for it. And then if not, we can look at trying to access community services or emergency funds to help victims cover those costs. If that's not successful, then we get really creative and make sure to find maybe someone who can help with utilities or groceries or other costs, so that a person who's been victimized can save their own money to pay that impound fee. So we definitely work every single day to try to help mitigate those costs.
That's great. Thanks, Wendy. I didn't know that. Jessica, somebody asked if we're handing out masks to those experiencing homelessness throughout the community. And I wondered if you could just touch on a little bit about what's being done with those who are experiencing symptoms, and maybe some information about the homeless resource centers.
Yes, we are handing out masks as we have them to anyone, especially if they are symptomatic. We're encouraging anyone who is symptomatic to go and get tested at the 4th Street Clinic. The protocol right now is that there'd be a cab that would drive you to 4th Street Clinic to get tested, and just kind of monitor your symptoms and see what's going on. And so we are handing out masks, and then if we have any spare gloves, anything like that, we'll hand out. We're being pretty creative on how we get masks to people too. But with that, people are getting tested at 4th Street Clinic, and they're being monitored just to make sure. And there are some quarantine sites that are through the county health department, that someone can get quarantined there if they have no location to quarantine at.
Great. And the number for the Homeless Resource Center, if anybody needs it, could you give that out?
Yes, I can. This is a direct line to access any shelter, and that is 801-990-9999. And this is a number you can call to see where you can go for shelter availability. Right now, all the single individual shelters are accepting people again, and family shelter you can still call them, but I know they were testing people last I heard.
Great, thanks. One more question for you, Chief, regarding e-scooters. It's warmer weather and we have a lot more wheels out on the street. So Jared from Facebook is asking, what are we doing to help with that and communicate that they should be using the sidewalks and walking them instead of riding them?
Well, Christy, we've worked with the city and the different organizations and outreach to those that want to ride scooters, and then to the community that they are allowed on the roads. In the downtown business district, they shouldn't be on the sidewalks. I mean, there's a lot of people that are walking about. They should be in the bike lanes, and they should follow traffic laws. And I mean, they should stop for red lights and all those different things. So it's a constant community outreach to educate both the driving public and the e-scooter public and the bicyclist public that we share these roads together, and we all need to watch out for each other. So.
Right. And last year, we did kick off a campaign called Walk Your Wheels. And I believe there were some painted symbols on the sidewalks, just reminding people that they need to walk the wheels on the sidewalks and make sure to park them in appropriate places so that anyone can continue walking down the sidewalk and not worry about tripping over them, particularly those who are, maybe blind and they're not seeing that hazard in the middle of the sidewalk. Great. So we are winding down. We have about 4 minutes left, and I wanted to just wrap this up with maybe, does anybody have anything that they want to provide to the community or ask of the community? Chief.
Thanks, Christy. Look, I want to reach out to the communities of Salt Lake and just tell them thank you. Thanks for spending the last hour with us and asking some of these very important questions during a very critical time, a pandemic. I mean, who would have ever thought we'd be sitting here doing this type of conversation over computers? But I want you to know that this police department, one of our core values is commitment to the community, and we hold that very, very sacred. We love working with our community and engaging with them on different things, crime hotspots, trends, to build trust and relationships, because we're a better police department when we have the support and can work with our communities. And that's all of the communities we serve. So immigrants, refugees, everybody in Salt Lake City, I want you to know that the men and women of the Salt Lake City Police Department love you. All we want to do is serve you to the best of our ability during this very difficult time. So thank you.
We actually have received a lot of donations from the community. I feel like during this time that they've really reached out and stepped up to help get us what we need. We've had donations of masks and eyewear and hand sanitizer. I know that we've tried to thank them publicly on our social media sites, but it's been a huge help for us to get those donated items. And Chief, did you have a comment to the community about our community outreach right now, which has been slightly hindered given the current circumstances?
It's really hard, especially coming from me as a chief. I'm a handshaker and a hugger, and this is killing me. So it's a different world we live in right now. But we'd love to hear from you in ways that we can get together and do it safely. If that would be how we can participate in community outreach, is that being at more community festivals. We can figure out a way to do building tours, to walk through your neighborhoods, to visit with the any way that we can work together. We would love to hear from you about ideas and ways to do that. So
great, yeah.
Please reach us.
We're gonna, yeah. So different ways that you can reach out to the Salt Lake City Police Department and let us know how we can participate in the community more. You can email us through our website. The chief even has an Ask the Chief email account that you can send information to. You can also follow us or send messages to us on all of our various social media platforms. That's Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And we'd really like for you to stay in touch with us and let us know how we're doing, and invite us to the community festivals, come and tour the building when we're able to do that again, and keep in touch. I'd like to personally thank the chief and all of the panelists for being here today and for answering all the questions. We will be doing this again shortly, and we'll have different panel members that can provide input. So thank you
Christy.
for attending.
Yeah. Stay safe, Salt Lake City. We love you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Salt Lake City.